Revenge doesn't announce itself. It waits. Mine waited 32 years, then struck in under 3 minutes. But before we get there, let me show you something. A federal prosecutor's office in Chicago. Evidence folders stacked 3 feet high on mahogany that's seen 1,000 confessions. My ex-wife Diane's mugshot glowing on a monitor behind the lead prosecutor's head. And me, Vincent Kane, sitting across from a woman who just said, "This is the most calculated case I've seen in 15 years." How did we get here? Let me take you back. 32 years. That's how long it took me to build Titan Construction, from a pickup truck and $3,000 in borrowed money to one of the most respected firms in the Midwest. 32 years of 4 a.m. alarm clocks, of missing Troy's baseball games because a foundation needed pouring, of forgetting Natalie's dance recitals because a client demanded FaceTime, of anniversaries spent on job sites instead of restaurants. I told myself it was for them, for my family. Every sacrifice, every missed moment, I was building their future. The retirement party was supposed to prove I was right. 200 guests packed into the Hilton Grand Ballroom in Columbus, Ohio. Mayor Thompson was there. So were the contractors who'd worked with me since the beginning, back when Titan was just me and a dream that refused to die. The room smelled like money. Expensive catering, shrimp cocktails, filet mignon that cost more per plate than I used to make in a week. Crystal chandeliers caught the champagne bubbles. A jazz quartet played something smooth in the corner. Silverware clinked against china. Low conversations mixed with laughter. This was success. This was victory. My business partner, Leonard Fletcher, gave a speech that almost made me cry. Talked about brotherhood, loyalty, building something that would outlast us both. 30 years we'd worked side by side. 30 years of trusting him with everything. I scanned the crowd from my seat at the head table. Colleagues, subcontractors, friends I'd made pouring concrete in the summer heat. And there, 3 tables back, my family. My wife, Diane, wore that crimson dress I'd bought her in Cincinnati, $2,400 I couldn't really afford but bought anyway because she'd stopped smiling at me somewhere around year 25. The dress fit her perfectly, made her look 10 years younger. She was 56 and still turned heads. Our son Troy sat beside her, 28 years old, working in Titan's accounting department. My boy. The one I'd held at 2 a.m. when he wouldn't stop crying, walking circles around our tiny apartment while Diane slept. He'd grown into a man I barely recognized. Sharp suits, sharper edges, eyes that never quite met mine anymore. And Natalie, 25, my baby girl, the one I'd taught to ride a bike in Goodale Park, running behind her with my hand on the seat, promising I wouldn't let go. She screamed when I finally did. Not from fear, from joy, from the thrill of flying. She wasn't smiling now. My chest swelled with something I thought was pride. I did it. We made it. Then Diane stood up. At first, I thought she was going to toast me. That's what wives do at retirement parties, right? Say something sweet about sacrifice and partnership. Maybe even lie about how it was all worth it. But her smile was wrong. Half triumph, half something else. Something that made my stomach drop before my brain caught up. Troy and Natalie stood up too, flanked me like bodyguards, like soldiers. Confusion rippled through the room. Conversations died mid-sentence. Someone's fork scraped against a plate, loud in the sudden quiet. Diane walked toward me. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor. Each step a countdown. Click, click, click. She held a manila envelope in her perfectly manicured hands. "Vincent," she said, loud enough for the microphones to catch, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I have something for you." The room held its breath. She opened the envelope, pulled out papers, let them spill onto the white tablecloth in front of me like evidence at a crime scene. The words blurred. refocused, blurred again. Someone gasped. A woman at table 7. I heard a glass drop, shatter. No one moved to clean it up. "I want a divorce," Diane announced. Her voice carried through the ballroom like a verdict. "And I'm done pretending I ever loved you." The words hit different than you'd think. Not like a punch, more like Novocaine, numbing, spreading, killing feeling in places I didn't know could go dead. I looked at Troy, my son. "Troy?" He wouldn't meet my eyes, stared at a spot just past my shoulder like I was already a ghost. "You were never there," he said, flat, rehearsed. "She deserves someone who actually shows up." Natalie was crying, but she was smiling too, this horrible, broken smile that didn't match the tears streaming down her face. "Every birthday you missed, every recital, every moment that mattered, you chose work, every single time." Then Troy started clapping. Slow, deliberate, cruel. Natalie joined him, then some of Diane's friends, then more. The applause spread like disease through the ballroom. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to make it clear this wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. This was execution. The jazz quartet had stopped playing. The room split into two types of people, those clapping and those staring in horror. I couldn't tell which group was bigger, couldn't tell if it mattered. My hands should have been shaking. That's what happens in moments like this, right? Your body betrays you. Adrenaline floods your system. Fight or flight kicks in.
But my hands were steady. Diane had thought of everything. She'd even brought a pen, gold-plated, expensive, the kind you use to sign important documents. I picked it up, felt the weight of it. Muscle memory from 32 years of signing contracts, proposals, closing deals. I didn't read the papers, didn't ask for a lawyer, didn't beg or scream or flip the table like some animal version of myself wanted to. I just signed. Every page, every line that needed my name. Vincent Kane and my practice signature. The one I'd perfected in business school, the one that built empires. The one that was supposed to mean something. When I finished, I stood up. The room was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Could hear someone breathing too fast 3 tables away. I leaned close to Diane's ear, close enough to smell her perfume. The same one she'd worn on our wedding day 29 years ago. Whispered, "You have no idea what you just did." For half a heartbeat, her smile faltered, her eyes flickered with something. Doubt, maybe? Or fear? But then it was gone, replaced by that triumphant mask. She kissed my cheek, slow, theatrical, making sure everyone saw. Then she walked out, red dress swaying, heels clicking, Troy and Natalie following like loyal subjects behind a queen. The jazz quartet didn't know what to do. Someone coughed. Someone else started crying, not from me, just from the awkwardness of witnessing a public execution. I stood there alone at the head table. Signed divorce papers spread out like casualties. A red wine stain bleeding across my signature on page 3. The staff started breaking down tables. Someone turned off half the lights. The party was over. I was 58 years old, and I just watched my entire life walk out of the ballroom without looking back. That was 3 months ago. What Diane didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd been watching them for 6 months before that night. Because you see, I knew exactly who was sleeping in my bed. Subscribe. Most people never see betrayal coming. Don't be one of them. Have you ever trusted someone completely only to realize they were planning your destruction the whole time? Drop a comment if you've been there, because what happens next, they never saw coming. Let me take you back to the night my world stopped spinning. October 14th, 11:47 p.m. The night I learned my life was a lie. I was supposed to be at the office until midnight. The Henderson contract,
$3 million in commercial renovations, needed signatures by morning. I told Diane not to wait up. She'd stopped waiting up for me around year 15 anyway. But at 11:30, I realized I'd left the contract addendum at home, in my office, the one room Diane never entered because it was too cluttered and smelled like work. I drove back to our house in Bexley. Big colonial, 4 bedrooms, the kind of place that screams success to the neighbors. White pillars, brick facade, magazine-worthy landscaping that cost $800 a month to maintain. I'd bought it for her, for them. Proof that grinding for 30 years meant something. The front porch light was off. Unusual. Diane always left it on. Said she felt safer that way. But the bedroom light was on. Second floor, corner window, I could see the glow from the driveway. Also unusual. Diane went to bed at 10 every night, set her alarm for 6 a.m. Routine was her religion. My key turned silent in the lock. The house was dark except for that upstairs light bleeding down through the hallway. I heard voices. Not the TV. Diane hated sleeping with background noise. These were real voices, low, intimate, followed by laughter. Her laughter. I hadn't heard her laugh like that in years. Light, genuine, the way she used to laugh when we were 25 and thought love was enough. My legs carried me up the stairs before my brain could process what was happening. Muscle memory. I'd climbed these stairs 10,000 times, could do it in the dark, could do it drunk, could do it while my world was ending. The front door was cracked open. Just enough. I pushed it wider. Diane. In our bed. The bed I'd assembled when we moved in 12 years ago. The mattress we'd picked out together at that overpriced furniture store where the salesman called us the perfect couple. She wasn't alone. Leonard Fletcher, my business partner, my best friend, the man I trusted with 30 years of my life, the man who'd given that touching speech about brotherhood just 3 months later at my execution. He was wearing the Rolex I'd bought him for our 20th anniversary as partners, $12,000. Engraved on the back, Brothers in Steel and Concrete, VK. It was sitting on my nightstand, next to Diane's wedding ring. The smell hit me like a wall. Her perfume, Chanel No. 5, the one I bought her every Christmas, mixed with cologne I didn't recognize. Expensive, the kind Leonard could afford after I made him a millionaire. My sound narrowed to a tunnel, my heartbeat drowning everything else. Thump, 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 so loud I couldn't hear what they were saying, could only see their mouths moving, their bodies tangled in sheets I paid for. My hand was still on the doorknob. I should have screamed, should have torn the door off its hinges, should have done something that matched the nuclear bomb going off inside my chest. But I didn't. I quietly closed the door, soft click. They never heard me enter, never knew I was there. I walked back down the stairs, out the front door, to my truck. Sat in the driver's seat with my hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2 like I was taking a driver's test. I didn't cry, didn't rage, didn't do anything. I just drove. 2 hours north, Highway 75 to Toledo. Past exits I'd taken 1,000 times for job sites, past the truck stop where I used to buy coffee at 5 a.m., past everything familiar until nothing looked real anymore. Motel 6, off exit 192, $47 a night. The sign flickered, every third letter dead. The parking lot was half empty,
A semi-truck idled in the corner, exhaust visible in the October cold. Room 118, ground floor, smelled like cigarettes and industrial cleaner trying to cover up something worse. I sat on the edge of the bed, polyester bedspread, rough under my palms, fluorescent light buzzing overhead like a dying insect. That's when it hit me. Not the affair. That was just the bullet. The real wound was everything that came before. I pulled out my wallet. Behind my license, a photo I had forgotten was there. Diane and me on our wedding day. St. Mark's Catholic Church in Dayton, Ohio. She was 27, I was 29. She wore white lace, I wore a rented tux that didn't fit right. We were smiling like we'd just won the lottery. We had $3,000 in the bank. No house, no plan, just love and stupidity and the absolute certainty that we'd figure it out together. When did that die? Year 5, when I started missing dinners? Year 10, when I forgot our anniversary because a client threatened to sue? Year 15, when she stopped saying I love you and I stopped noticing? More photos in my wallet. Troy at 2 days old. Tiny, wrinkled, perfect. I'd held him at 3 a.m. while Diane slept, whispering promises about the life I'd give him, the opportunities, the future. Natalie at her high school graduation, cap and gown, holding her diploma. I'd made it to that one. Sat in the back because I arrived late. She'd looked for me in the crowd. I saw her face fall when she couldn't find me. I'd told myself it didn't matter, that providing for them was the same as being present. I'd been lying to myself for 30 years, but that didn't give them the right to do this. My phone buzzed. Text from Diane. Where are you? You said you'd be home by 12:30. I stared at it. She was lying in our bed, in the same sheets, probably still warm from Leonard. And she was texting me like I was the problem, like I was the one who'd broken something. I didn't respond. Instead, I made a call.
Winston Torres answered on the third ring, voice rough from sleep. This better be good, Kane. It's 2 a.m. I need you to find something for me. Winston had been FBI for 23 years before retiring. Now he ran a private investigation firm out of Cleveland. We'd met on a job site 8 years ago. He was investigating contractor fraud, and I'd helped him nail the guy who was stealing from his own workers. What kind of something? Winston asked. I heard him sit up, heard sheets rustle. He was awake now. Everything, I said. My wife, my business partner. I need to know how long, how deep, and who else knows. Silence on the other end, long enough that I thought the call dropped. Then, you sure you want to know? Sometimes ignorance is mercy. I looked at the photo of Diane in her wedding dress, young, happy, a stranger. Find me the truth, I said. I'll handle the mercy part myself. 2 weeks later, Winston met me at a diner outside Akron. Corner booth. Coffee so bad it tasted like punishment. He slid a folder across the table. 3 inches thick. You're not going to like this, he said. I opened it. Photos first. Diane and Leonard at a hotel in Cleveland, the Ritz-Carlton. Walking into the lobby holding hands like teenagers. Timestamp 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'd been in Columbus that day, meeting with the mayor about a city contract. More photos. Different hotel. Cincinnati, the Westin. Diane wearing the diamond earrings I'd bought her for Christmas. Leonard's hand on her lower back. Indianapolis. Louisville. Dayton. 18 months of hotels. Credit card receipts. My credit card, the platinum one with no limit, that I had given Diane for emergencies. She'd spent $47,000 in 18 months on hotel rooms, dinners, weekend getaways. I'd funded my own betrayal. Text messages next. Winston had pulled them from Diane's cloud backup. Thousands of them. He'll never know. He's too busy playing builder to notice his life falling apart. Diane. When you can leave him? I'm tired of hiding. Leonard. Soon, once we have everything in place. Trust me. Diane. My hand started shaking. Coffee spilled onto the table. Winston pushed napkins toward me without a word. Bank statements. Joint accounts I'd never monitored because I trusted her. Withdrawals. $5,000, $10,000, $7,500. Always round numbers. Always to accounts I didn't recognize. Winston pointed to a highlighted section. Offshore account. Cayman Islands. $847,000. The diner tilted, righted itself. That's impossible, I said. I would have noticed. You would have, Winston interrupted, if you'd been looking. But you weren't. You were working, building, trusting. He pulled out another stack of documents. This is where it gets worse. I didn't know it could get worse. Your son's involved. The words didn't make sense. Like hearing a foreign language. I knew the individual words but couldn't put them together. Troy? Winston nodded. Slid across falsified accounting reports, Titan construction letterhead, numbers that didn't match reality, payments to shell companies, transfers to offshore accounts. Troy's signature on every page. He's been covering for them, redirecting funds, making the books look clean. Vincent, he's not just helping his mother hide an affair, he's actively stealing from your company. My son. The boy I'd held at 2 a.m. The one who'd looked up at me and said, I want to build things like you, Dad. He'd been destroying me instead. Winston pulled out one more document. Phone records. Text messages between Troy and Diane. How much longer do we have to pretend? Troy. Not long. Once phase 1 is complete, we move to liquidation. Your father will be too broken to fight back. Diane. Good. He deserves this. Troy. I read that line 3 times. He deserves this. Why? I whispered. Didn't mean to say it out loud, but Winston heard. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. I closed the folder, pushed it back across the table, couldn't look at it anymore. Keep digging, I said. There's more. I can feel it. Winston studied me. What are you going to do? I touched the space on my finger where my wedding ring used to be. I'd taken it off in that motel room 2 weeks ago, left it on the nightstand next to the Bible nobody reads. I'm going to give them exactly what they want, and then I'm going to take everything else. I thought that was the worst of it. I thought Troy was just helping his cheating mother. But when Winston showed me what he found in Troy's laptop, I realized my son wasn't the accomplice. He was the mastermind. Only subscribers know what happens when family becomes the enemy. Don't miss what's coming. Would you forgive a child who betrayed you? Or is blood only blood until it draws blood? Tell me in the comments. I need to know I'm not crazy for what I did next.
There's a moment in every man's life when he decides who he really is. Mine came in that diner outside Akron, staring at my son's handwriting on falsified accounting reports. Not the moment I found Diane in bed with Leonard. Not the moment she humiliated me in front of 200 people. The moment I realized my own son had been planning my destruction. That's when grief turned to fuel. I went back to that motel room in Toledo, room 118. Same flickering sign, same smell of cigarettes and failure, but I was different now. I emptied my wallet onto the polyester bedspread, credit cards, cash, receipts, and that photo,
the one of 8-year-old Troy at my construction site. Summer of 1997, his first visit to a real job. He begged for weeks, "Please, Dad, I want to see what you do. I want to be just like you." I'd bought him a toy hard hat from the hardware store, yellow plastic, 2 sizes too big. It kept sliding down over his eyes, and he'd push it back up with this serious expression, trying so hard to look professional. In the photo, he's looking up at me like I hung the moon and hammered the stars into place. On the back, in his messy 8-year-old handwriting, "My hero, Troy." I stared at that photo for an hour, tried to find the exact moment when my hero became "he deserves this." Then I burned it, held it over the motel ash tray, and watched my son's childhood curl into black ash, watched his smile disappear, watched the words dissolve. When there was nothing left but smoke, I made 2 phone calls. First, to Winston. "Keep digging. Find me everything on Troy. Every email, every text, every secret he's ever kept. I want to know what turned my son into this." Second, to a lawyer in Cleveland. "I need someone who specializes in corporate restructuring and asset protection, and I need someone who doesn't ask questions." The lawyer's name was Felix Crane, former prosecutor, reputation for being brilliant and ruthless, exactly what I needed. "Mr. Kane," Felix said when we met the next morning, "what exactly are we protecting against?" "My family," I said. "I'm protecting everything I built from my family." He didn't even blink, just opened his briefcase and got to work. The next 5 months, I lived 2 lives. During the day, I was Vincent Kane, husband, father, business owner. I went to work, signed contracts, had dinner with Diane, when I bothered to come home, kissed her goodnight in that bed where I'd found her with Leonard. I played the role perfectly, the oblivious fool too busy working to notice his world burning. At night, I became someone else. I rented a studio apartment under my sister's name, furnished it with a desk, a filing cabinet, and a coffee maker that worked overtime. The walls became covered with flowcharts, timelines, financial transfers mapped out like battle plans. I learned corporate law faster than most lawyers, studied asset protection strategies, memorized offshore account regulations. Felix would send me documents at 2 a.m., and I'd have them analyzed by dawn. Chinese takeout containers stacked like evidence, coffee cups multiplied like bacteria. I stopped sleeping more than 4 hours a night, but I was building something beautiful. Apex Development LLC. My phoenix, my future, the company that would rise from Titan's ashes. Felix helped me create it as a shell, invisible to Diane, Leonard, and Troy. We structured it perfectly, legal, untouchable, waiting. Then, piece by piece, I started moving my empire. The rental properties first. I own 6 buildings across Ohio, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Akron, Toledo. Commercial spaces generating $47,000 a month in revenue. I transferred them to Apex through a complex series of legal maneuvers that would make their heads spin if they ever figured it out, which they wouldn't, because Troy thought he was the smart one. Investment accounts next. $2.3 million across various portfolios. I liquidated everything during a strategic market high, moved it offshore to legitimate accounts in the Cayman Islands, the same place Diane and Troy had been hiding their stolen money. Poetic, right? Then came the delicate part. My clients. I'd spent 32 years building relationships, handshakes that meant something, trust that couldn't be bought. These people didn't do business with Titan Construction, they did business with Vincent Kane. So I contacted them, personally, quietly. Started with Gerald Morrison, CEO of Morrison Medical Systems. We'd built 4 hospitals together. His wife and Diane used to have brunch. "Gerald, I'm transitioning, starting fresh. New company, same commitment to quality. I wanted you to hear it from me first." He studied me, knew something was wrong. Gerald hadn't built a $400 million company by missing details. Diane, I said, among other things. He nodded. Didn't need more explanation. Send me the paperwork for the new company. Morrison Medical will follow you, not the logo. One by one, I had the same conversation with every major client. 15 conversations, 15 commitments. By the time I was done, I'd secured $18 million in contracts for Apex, all agreements that would expire or terminate at Titan before transferring. I relicensed Titan's intellectual property to Apex. The construction methods I'd pioneered, the safety protocols, the proprietary software Troy thought was untouchable. All gone, all mine. What was left at Titan? An office lease coming due in 6 months, $34,000 a month they couldn't afford. Equipment loans I'd strategically structured to balloon right after the divorce. Payroll obligations for workers who'd suddenly find their contracts completed. Tax liabilities I've been deferring for years, now coming due all at once. I left them a beautiful trap. A company that looked valuable, but was actually a ticking bomb. And the best part? Every move was completely legal. Felix checked, and checked again, and brought in 2 other lawyers to check. It's brilliant, he said, almost admiringly. Ruthless but brilliant. They're going to get everything they wanted, and it's going to destroy them. But I still didn't know why. Why Troy hated me enough to orchestrate this. Why my son wanted me destroyed. That answer came in month 4. Winston called me at 3 a.m. I was already awake, reviewing property transfer documents. I found it, he said. I found why. We met at a 24-hour diner off I-71. Same booth, same terrible coffee, different folder. This one was thinner, but heavier. 5 years ago, you fired someone from Titan. Woman named Brooke Delaney. Remember her? The name hit me like cold water. Brooke. Troy's fiancée. Young. Pretty. Smart. Worked in accounts receivable. Until I caught her embezzling. She stole $70,000 over 8 months. Created fake vendor accounts. Paid herself through shell companies. I kept it quiet. Paid back the money myself to protect Titan's reputation. Gave her mercy by not prosecuting. Just made sure she couldn't work in construction again.
Winston nodded. Troy begged you to reconsider. I remembered. Troy crying in my office. 23 years old. In love. Desperate. She made a mistake, Dad. One mistake. You're destroying our future. We were going to get married. You're taking away her career, her reputation, everything. I'd looked at my son and said, integrity matters more than comfort, even family comfort. She stole from people who trusted us. There are consequences. Troy had looked at me like I'd killed something in him. Walked out. Didn't speak to me for 3 months. But he'd stayed at Titan, kept working. Eventually, things seemed to normalize. I thought we'd moved past it. Winston, I said slowly, tell me Brooke isn't... Still in Troy's life? Winston finished. She never left. He spread photos across the table. Troy and Brooke. Coffee shop in Cleveland. Last week. Troy and Brooke. Her apartment. 2 months ago. Troy and Brooke. Parking garage. 6 months ago. Hundreds of photos spanning 5 years. She's been with him this whole time, Winston said. Underground, secret, planning. Text messages next. Thousands of them. Winston's tech guy had pulled them from Troy's laptop cloud backup. Your father took everything from us. Now we take everything from him. Brooke. I'm scared. What if he finds out? Troy. He won't. He's too arrogant, too busy building his legacy to notice it crumbling. Brooke. My mom doesn't know the real plan, does she? Troy. Your mother thinks this is about her happiness. Let her think that. She's useful. Brooke. I read that last one 3 times. Diane didn't even know she was a puppet. There's more, Winston said. He looked sick. Troy approached Leonard 18 months ago, Got him drunk, started complaining about you, how you were never there, how you prioritized work over family, how Diane was lonely. He weaponized Leonard's guilt, I said. Exactly. Then he suggested Leonard check in on Mom, make sure she was okay. It escalated from there. Troy orchestrated his own mother's affair. My hands were shaking. Coffee spilled again. I didn't bother cleaning it up. Why would he do that to Diane? Because Brooke told him to, Winston said simply. She knew a simple divorce wouldn't destroy you. You'd survive, rebuild, move on. But a public humiliation, your own family turning on you, your business partner, your best friend betraying you, that breaks a man permanently. That's not just revenge. That's annihilation. The diner felt too small, too hot, too real. Winston, I said slowly, tell me Brooke isn't still in Troy's life? Winston finished. She never left. He spread photos across the table. Troy and Brooke, coffee shop in Cleveland, last week. Troy and Brooke, her apartment, 2 months ago. Troy and Brooke, parking garage, 6 months ago. Hundreds of photos spanning 5 years. She's been with him this whole time, Winston said. Underground, secret, planning. Text messages next. Thousands of them. Winston's tech guy had pulled them from Troy's laptop cloud backup. Your father took everything from us. Now we take everything from him. Brooke. I'm scared. What if he finds out? Troy. He won't. He's too arrogant, too busy building his legacy to notice it crumbling. Brooke. My mom doesn't know the real plan, does she? Troy. Your mother thinks this is about her happiness. Let her think that. She's useful. I read that last one 3 times. Diane didn't even know she was a puppet. There's more, Winston said. He looked sick. Brooke's father is Walter Delaney, attorney in Cleveland, but not the normal kind. What kind? I asked. The kind with connections to organized crime, money laundering, witness intimidation, 2 suspected murders that could never be proven. Vincent, you're not just fighting a revenge plot, you're fighting people who make problems disappear. The diner was quiet, except for a distant siren and the hum of the refrigerator behind the counter. I thought about my children, my son who'd become a stranger, my daughter who'd cheered at my execution, my wife who'd traded 29 years for 18 months of hotel rooms. I thought about the contractors who'd shaken my hand and trusted my word, the workers who'd shown up at 6 a.m. every day, building my vision with calloused hands and honest sweat. Brooke wanted to destroy all of them to hurt me. Winston, I said, I need you to find me everything on Walter Delaney, everything on Brooke, every connection, every crime, every secret. Vincent, these are dangerous people. I don't care. My voice came out cold, flat. They threatened innocent people. They weaponized my son. They turned my family into weapons, and they think I'm just going to roll over and die. I pulled out the divorce papers from my jacket, the ones I'd signed at the retirement party, carried them everywhere as a reminder. I gave them what they wanted. Now I'm going to give them what they deserve. Winston studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. I'll have it in a week. I thought stealing my business was the endgame, but phase 2? They wanted to burn down everyone who'd ever trusted the Titan name and blame me for the ashes. Subscribe if you think people get what they deserve, because what's coming next, they never saw it coming. Some of you think I should have just walked away, let them have the money, and moved on. Comment walk away or burn it down. Let's see where you stand. Because what Vincent does next doesn't just destroy them, it makes sure they can never hurt anyone again.
The retirement party wasn't just theater, it was evidence. And I made sure every word was recorded. Let me tell you something about Ohio law. Single-party consent for recordings.
As long as one person in the conversation knows they're being recorded, it's completely legal and admissible in court. I was at that party. That made everything they said fair game. Winston planted 6 devices throughout the Hilton Grand Ballroom. Professional grade, the kind law enforcement uses. Hidden in flower arrangements, tucked behind picture frames, clipped under tables. Every toast, every conversation, every word of my public execution, all captured in crystal-clear audio. But the real gold, the coat room. 30 minutes before dinner service, Diane, Leonard, Troy, and Natalie had a private celebration. Thought they were alone. Thought the empty coat room was safe. Winston's device was in a fire extinguisher cabinet on the wall. I've listened to that recording 200 times, could recite it from memory. But hearing it the first time, sitting in my studio apartment 3 days after the party, that's when I knew I had them. Troy's voice, clear as daylight. Once Dad signs those papers, phase 1 is complete. Tomorrow morning, I start liquidating the accessible accounts. By end of week, we'll have transferred everything we can touch. Leonard, nervous. And he still doesn't suspect anything? Vincent's sharp. He built an empire from nothing. Diane laughing, actually laughing. Vincent's too busy working to notice his own life falling apart. He hasn't really looked at me in 10 years, hasn't really talked to Troy in 5. We're invisible to him. That's his weakness. Natalie, quieter, hesitant. Are we sure about this? He's still our father, still your husband. This feels cruel. Silence. Then Troy's voice, harder now. Troy stopped being my father when he destroyed Brooke, when he valued his precious integrity over his own son's happiness. He had a choice 5 years ago, protect his family or protect his reputation. He chose wrong. Now he pays. Diane, Natalie, honey, your father made his choices. He chose work over us every single time. Every birthday, every recital, every moment that mattered. We're just choosing ourselves now. That's not cruel, that's survival. Natalie, okay, you're right. She didn't sound convinced, but she said yes anyway. That's the part that still keeps me up some nights. Natalie had doubts, real doubts, but Troy and Diane pushed her forward anyway. I sat in my apartment, listening to my family plot my destruction, and something inside me finished dying. Not the part that loved them. That had died in the bedroom doorway 6 months ago. This was the part that felt guilty, the part that wondered if maybe I deserved this, if maybe I'd been such a terrible husband and father that this was justice. That part turned to ash. Because they weren't doing this for justice, they were doing it for money, revenge, and cruelty, disguised as liberation. I saved that recording on 5 different drives, uploaded it to 3 separate cloud accounts, sent encrypted copies to Winston and Felix. Evidence. Beautiful, damning evidence. 2 months after the divorce, they made their move. I was in Chicago, meeting with contractors for Apex development, building my new empire while my old one burned exactly as planned. Winston called at 8:47 p.m. They're celebrating. Where? Hyde Park Prime Steakhouse, Columbus, the expensive one downtown. Diane, Leonard, and Troy. Bottle of wine that costs more than most people's car payments. I pulled up the security feed Winston had tapped into. Restaurants are easy, 1 bribed employee, 1 tiny camera. There they were, my former family, my former best friend, laughing, toasting, Troy raising his glass. Then Leonard's face changed. He pulled out his phone, started tapping. His face faded, turned to confusion, then panic. He said something to Troy. I couldn't hear, but I could read lips well enough. The accounts are frozen. Troy grabbed his own phone, started typing frantically. His face went white. Diane leaned in concerned. Leonard showed her his screen. I watched my ex-wife's expression collapse in real time. Leonard made a call. I had Winston listening in through a clone SIM card. Completely illegal, but I'd stopped caring about legality when they stole $847,000 from me. Leonard, what do you mean the account's frozen? I need access immediately. This is Leonard Fletcher from Titan Construction.
Bank officer, Mr. Fletcher, these accounts show a balance of $247. They've been systematically emptied over the past 4 months. The last withdrawal was 3 weeks ago. Leonard, that's impossible. There should be over 2 million. Sir, I'm showing $247. Perhaps you should speak with your business manager or accountant. Leonard looked at Troy. Troy was already on his laptop, typing so fast his fingers blurred. I knew what he was finding. Nothing. Empty accounts, vanished assets, property titles transferred, contracts expired. The beautiful trap I'd spent 5 months building had just snapped shut. Emergency board meeting at Titan Construction, 9 a.m. the next morning. I wasn't there, obviously, but Winston had convinced the building maintenance supervisor to leave a few forgotten cameras in the conference room. Cost me $5,000, worth every penny. 7 people around the table, Leonard at the head where I used to sit, Troy beside him with his laptop open, Diane in the back, arms crossed. 4 board members looking confused and angry. Board member number 1. Someone explained to me why our biggest client just terminated their contract with 30 days' notice. Leonard, it's a temporary situation. Vincent's transition? He retired. That doesn't explain why Morris and Medical Systems is pulling $4 million in contracts. Troy, they're following Vincent to his new company. It's personal relationships, not business ones. His new company? What new company? The room went quiet. Board member number 3, are you telling me Vincent started a competing firm? Leonard, it's not competing, he's restructuring his personal... Stop dancing around it, Leonard. Did Vincent Kane take our clients? Troy, he can't. The non-compete clause in his retirement... There was no non-compete. Diane filed for divorce at the party, remember? Vincent signed papers that granted him full separation from Titan effective immediately. He can do whatever he wants. I watched Troy's face realize what had happened. I'd signed those divorce papers without reading them. Let them think I was broken, defeated, too shattered to fight back.
But those papers did exactly what I needed them to do, released me from every obligation to Titan, every non-compete, every partnership clause, every restriction. Diane had handed me my freedom and didn't even know it. What about the rental properties? Those generate significant monthly revenue. They've been transferred to an LLC I don't recognize. Apex Development. Vincent's company. When did he... While you were planning his humiliation, apparently he was planning his exit. Smart man. We still have the intellectual property, the construction methods, the software systems. No, we don't. They were licensed, not owned. The licenses expired last week. They're now exclusively licensed to Apex Development. What exactly do we still have? The office, the equipment, the Titan name. The office lease is $34,000 a month and comes due in 3 weeks. Equipment loans balloon in 2 months. That's $280,000 due. And the Titan name is worthless without clients, properties, or IP. Gentlemen, lady, this company is a shell. We're bankrupt. We just didn't know it yet. One of the board members started laughing. Not happy laughter. The kind that happens when reality breaks your brain. Vincent didn't just retire. He stripped this company down to bones and walked away with the meat. This is the most calculated corporate dissolution I've ever seen. He knew. The whole time he knew. Knew what? About us. About everything. He's been planning this for months. Diane stood up, walked to the window. I watched her shoulders shake. Couldn't tell if she was crying or raging. There has to be something we can do. Legal action. Sue him for... For what? Everything he did was legal. He moved his personal assets, retired from the company, started a new firm. There's no crime here. Just consequences. I'm resigning effective immediately. I'm not staying on a sinking ship. My reputation won't survive this. Within 15 minutes, all 4 board members had resigned. Left Leonard, Troy, and Diane in an empty conference room of a dying company. What about the house, the cars, my accounts? Troy, typing frantically. They've been transferred to an LLC I don't recognize, Apex Development. Troy, my accounts. Everything you got in the divorce was valued at the time of signing. Dad valued it at net assets. The house had more debt than equity. The accounts were empty. You got exactly what the paper said, everything as it existed that day, which was nothing. I watched my ex-wife sink into a chair. She'd won the divorce, got everything she asked for, and it was worth less than the lawyer fees to get it. I should have felt satisfaction, victory, some kind of triumph. Instead, I felt nothing, just cold, just tired. Until my phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Kane, this is Parker Sutton. The name took me a second. Then I remembered. Former CFO at Titan. Quiet guy. Kept to himself. I'd let him go 2 years ago after finding some accounting irregularities. Kept it quiet. Gave him severance. Thought that was the end of it. Parker, it's been a while. I know what your son did, and I know what you're doing now. I want to help. Help with what? Bringing them down. All of them. Troy threatened my family 2 years ago, told me if I ever talked about what I'd seen, if I ever reported the irregularities, he'd make sure my wife had an accident. My daughter was 6 years old. So I took your severance and I kept quiet, and I hated myself every day for it. My hand tightened on the phone. Troy threatened your family? With details, Mr. Kane. He knew where my daughter went to school, knew my wife's jogging route, knew things he shouldn't have known. I was terrified, so I documented everything instead. Every suspicious transfer, every falsified report, every piece of evidence that Troy was stealing from Titan and that you didn't know about it. You have evidence? Years of it. Testimony, documents, recordings of Troy bragging to another accountant about how stupid you were, how easy you were to steal from because you trusted your son. Mr. Kane, I have enough to put Troy away for 20 years, and I'm ready to hand it over. Why now? Because he's going down anyway, and I want to be there when it happens. I want him to know I helped. I want him to see my face and remember that he threatened my little girl. I understood that. Understood it completely. Parker, I'm going to give you a number. Attorney in Cleveland named Felix Crane. Call him. Tell him everything. He'll coordinate with my investigator. There's one more thing. Something you need to know. What? Brooke Delaney's father, Walter. He's not just connected to organized crime. He's under federal investigation. Has been for 3 years. FBI's been building a RICO case. They're close, real close. And if they find out about Troy and Brooke's revenge plot, that's conspiracy to commit fraud across state lines. That's federal. That's something they can use. My mind started racing. How do you know this? My cousin's an FBI analyst. He mentioned the Delaney case at Thanksgiving. Didn't know I knew them. I've been following it since then. Parker, would your cousin talk to me? He'd do better than that. He'd probably kill to have your evidence. The FBI's been trying to flip someone in Walter's organization for 2 years. If you have proof that Walter's daughter is involved in criminal conspiracy, that's leverage. I looked at my reflection in the window of my Chicago apartment. Saw a man I didn't quite recognize anymore. Harder, colder, more dangerous. Set up a meeting. Somewhere federal jurisdiction applies. I want immunity for anything Winston did that might have been questionable. And I want protection. Protection from what? From whatever Walter Delaney does when he finds out I'm coming for his daughter. Parker was quiet for a moment. Mr. Kane, are you sure about this? These are people who make problems disappear, literally. You could walk away right now. You've already won. I haven't won until I know they can't hurt anyone else. There are hundreds of contractors, workers, families who were going to be destroyed in Phase 2. This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about making sure Brooke and Troy and everyone involved can never do this to anyone again. Okay, I'll make the call. The meeting was set for 3 days later, Federal Building in Cleveland. Parker's cousin, FBI Special Agent Marcus Webb, and 2 prosecutors from the Organized Crime Division. I was packing evidence files when my phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Back off, or your daughter disappears. No signature, no explanation, just a threat. I stared at it for a full minute. They thought Natalie was on my side, thought she was helping me. They had no idea she'd cheered at my execution. No idea she'd been part of the plan. Which meant this wasn't from Troy, or Diane, or Leonard. They knew Natalie was with them. This was from someone else, someone who didn't know the full story, someone who thought threatening my daughter would make me stop. I called Winston. I need security on Natalie right now. Don't ask questions. Just get someone watching her 24/7. What happened? Someone just threatened her, and whoever it is doesn't know she betrayed me, which means they don't know about Phase 2 either, which means Natalie's in danger from both sides, Winston finished. She's a loose end. My daughter, who cheered while they destroyed me, who I had every reason to hate, every reason to let karma handle. But she was still my daughter. Keep her alive, Winston, whatever it takes. I looked at the text message again, tried to figure out who sent it. Walter Delaney? Brooke? Someone else in their organization? Then my phone buzzed again. Different number. This time, a photo. My car. Windshield shattered, glass glittering across the hood, and tucked under the wiper blade, a note. The photo was too blurry to read it, but I didn't need to. I knew what it said. They'd found out I was going to the FBI. They were escalating. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was war. And I just put my daughter in the crossfire of a battle she didn't even know she was fighting. Parker was right to be afraid, because the next morning someone shattered my windshield and left a note, "Back off or your daughter disappears." They thought Natalie was on my side. They didn't know she helped destroy me. But I knew one thing. Whoever wrote that note didn't know about Phase 2, which meant Natalie was in danger from 2 directions, and she had no idea why. Most people don't survive what's coming next. Subscribe so you do. If your kid betrayed you, but someone threatened their life, do you protect them anyway? Comment yes or no, because what Vincent does next will shock you. Wait, before we continue, think about this. Would you really risk everything to save someone who celebrated your destruction? Really think about it, because most people say yes until they're standing where Vincent's standing. Keep watching. The final chapter is where everything explodes. There are 2 types of revenge, the kind that destroys and the kind that exposes. I chose both. The Federal Building in Cleveland looked like justice should, cold, imposing granite columns that don't forgive. I walked through the metal detectors carrying 3 briefcases filled with 6 months of evidence. Winston met me in the lobby. He looked tired, older. This case had aged both of us. "Security detail is on Natalie," he said quietly. "Former Secret Service agent. She doesn't know he's there, but nobody's getting within 50 feet of her." "Good." "Vincent, you sure about this?" "Once you walk into that room, there's no going back. The FBI doesn't do halfway." I looked at the elevator that would take me to the 14th floor, to Special Agent Marcus Webb and 2 federal prosecutors who'd been hunting Walter Delaney for 3 years. I stopped being able to go back the night I found my wife in bed with my best friend, I said. This isn't about going back. It's about making sure what they did to me never happens to anyone else. Winston nodded. We stepped into the elevator. The conference room was exactly what you'd expect. Long table, American flag in the corner, two-way mirror I pretended not to notice, and three people who held the power to destroy lives with legal paperwork. Special Agent Marcus Webb, mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes, the kind of man who'd seen humanity's worst and stopped being surprised by it. Assistant U.S. Attorney Kendra Walsh, late 30s, red hair pulled back tight, reputation for being brilliant and merciless. She'd put away 2 crime families and a corrupt senator, exactly who I needed. And sitting beside her, another prosecutor whose name I didn't catch because I was too focused on the woman who could end this. Mr. Kane, Kendra said, standing to shake my hand. Firm grip, evaluating. I understand you have information about the Delaney organization. I have something better than information, I said. I opened the first briefcase. I have evidence that Walter Delaney's daughter is orchestrating a multi-state fraud conspiracy, and I have proof that connects it directly back to him. Her eyes widened slightly. First crack in her professional mask. Show me. For 2 hours, I laid it out. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence Winston had gathered. The offshore accounts showing $847,000 stolen from Titan Construction. Troy's falsified accounting reports spanning 18 months. The coat room recording from my retirement party. Troy's voice clear as crystal. Once Dad signs those papers, Phase 1 is complete. Emails between Brooke and Troy detailing Phase 2. The plan to frame me for decades of fraud, to destroy hundreds of innocent contractors and suppliers, to burn down everyone connected to Titan and blame me for the ashes. Text messages showing Brooke's father Walter knew about the plan, approved it, offered resources to make sure it succeeded. Parker Sutton's testimony about Troy threatening his family, documented evidence of intimidation and conspiracy. Bank records showing money flowing from Walter Delaney's shell companies to Brooke, to Troy, funding the entire operation. And the final piece, the death threat against Natalie, sent from a burner phone registered to one of Walter's known associates. By the time I finished, Kendra was leaning forward, elbows on the table, reading through documents like they were scripture. She paused, this is the most comprehensive evidence package I've seen in 15 years of prosecution. Agent Webb nodded slowly. We've been trying to build a RICO case against Walter Delaney since 2019. We had circumstantial evidence, witness statements from people too scared to testify, financial irregularities we couldn't quite prove. But this, he tapped the offshore account records, this is direct conspiracy, wire fraud, interstate criminal activity, and it ties directly to his daughter's operation. What happens now? I asked. Kendra looked at the other prosecutor, then back at me. Mr. Kane, based on this evidence, we can charge Leonard Fletcher with fraud and conspiracy, Diane Kane with being an accessory to fraud and money laundering, Troy Kane with fraud, conspiracy, embezzlement, witness intimidation, and about 6 other felonies. Sentencing? I asked. Leonard's looking at 15 to 20 years federal, Diane 8 to 12. Troy, she paused, 20 to 25, maybe more depending on what else we find when we dig deeper. The numbers should have felt good. Victory. Justice. They just felt heavy. And Brooke? I asked. Walter? Agent Webb smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Ms. Delaney is facing conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud across state lines, and accessory to witness intimidation. That's federal time, 10 to 15 years minimum. And her father, he smiled wider. We've been waiting for the right leverage. This is it. We raid his offices tomorrow. With your evidence and Brooke's involvement, we can flip 3 people in his organization who've been too scared to talk. Walter Delaney is looking at 30-plus years on RICO charges. When do you move? Winston asked. Fast, she said. We'll have arrest warrants by tomorrow morning. Federal marshals will pick them up simultaneously so nobody runs. Mr. Kane, you'll need to be available for testimony. I'll be there. One more thing, Agent Webb said.
The death threat against your daughter. We're taking that seriously. Walter has a history of eliminating loose ends. We're coordinating with local police to maintain protection until everyone's in custody. I thought about Natalie, my daughter who'd cheered at my execution, who I had every reason to abandon. She doesn't know she's in danger, I said. She thinks she's on the winning team. Kendra's expression softened slightly. Would you like us to inform her? We can bring her in for protective custody? No, I said. Not yet. Let her figure it out when the arrests happen. She made her choices. She can live with the consequences a little longer. It sounded crueler than I meant it, or maybe it was exactly as cruel as I meant it.
The raids happened at 6 a.m. the next morning. Federal marshals don't knock politely. They announce themselves once, then the door comes down. Leonard Fletcher was arrested at his apartment in German Village. Still in his bathrobe, hadn't even had his morning coffee. Diane was taken from the Bexley house, the one that was about to be seized anyway. She was in her garden, the one she'd spent years perfecting, knelt in the dirt in her expensive gardening gloves, planting flowers she'd never see bloom. Troy was arrested at Titan's office, sitting at my old desk, going through files trying to figure out how to salvage anything. The marshals let him put his shoes on before they cuffed him. Professional courtesy. I watched it all through Winston's connections. Wasn't there in person. Couldn't be. Needed distance. Needed to not see their faces when reality crashed down. But Brooke? Brooke I wanted to see in person. I met her at a coffee shop in Cleveland. Public place. Security cameras, witnesses everywhere. She walked in at 2 p.m. exactly. Confident. Beautiful. Dressed like someone who'd already won. She ordered a vanilla latte, extra foam, like this was a normal Tuesday. Sat across from me with that same smile I'd seen in photos with Troy. Predatory, triumphant. "Vincent," she said. My name in her mouth sounded like an insult. "I was surprised when you called. Thought you'd be too busy crying over your ruined life." I wanted to meet the person who orchestrated it, face to face, woman to man, destroyer to destroyed. She laughed, actually laughed. "You think you're destroyed, Vincent? You have no idea what destruction looks like yet. Phase 2 launches next week. By the time we're done, you won't just be bankrupt, you'll be in prison. And everyone who ever trusted you will know you are a fraud." "Interesting," I said. I pulled out my phone, set it on the table between us, recording. "Tell me more about Phase 2. She noticed the phone, didn't care, too arrogant to see the trap. "We're releasing documents showing you've been using substandard materials for decades, overcharging clients, falsifying safety reports. We've got fake invoices, forged signatures, testimony from contractors who'll swear you cut corners that killed people. By the time the lawsuits start, you'll wish you died in that retirement party. And your father is helping with this?" Her smile got wider. "My father has connections, resources. He knows how to make evidence look real, how to make witnesses cooperate, how to make problems disappear when they need to disappear. Like making Natalie disappear if I don't back off?" She shrugged. "Insurance. Your daughter's a complication. If she becomes a problem, she becomes a solution. That's business." I picked up my phone, stopped the recording, looked at her for a long moment. "You know what's interesting about Ohio law, Brooke? Single-party consent for recordings. Everything you just said is admissible in court." Her smile froze. "And you know what's more interesting? Your father's been under FBI investigation for 3 years. They've been looking for leverage, something to flip his organization. Someone's confession could bring down his entire operation." The color drained from her face. "I met with federal prosecutors 3 days ago, gave them 6 months of evidence. Recordings of you and Troy planning Phase 2, emails showing your father's involvement, financial records connecting his shell companies to your offshore accounts, testimony about witness intimidation, everything." "You're lying," she whispered, but her hands were shaking. "FBI raided your father's offices this morning at 6 a.m. By now, they've seized his computers, his files, his records. They've arrested 3 people in his organization who are already talking. And Leonard, Diane, and Troy, they're in federal custody, All of them. Brooks stood up. Chair scraped loud against the floor. People turned to look, whispered. Someone took a photo. You can't. My father will. He can't do anything from federal prison, and neither can you. You're facing 10 to 15 years, Brooke, for conspiracy, wire fraud, witness intimidation, all because 5 years ago I fired you for stealing $70,000. You destroyed my life. No, I said quietly. I gave you consequences for your actions. You destroyed your life. You just spent 5 years blaming me for it. She stared at me, tears starting. Not sad tears, rage tears. I loved him. Troy, I loved him. And you poisoned him against me, made him choose between his father and his future. You did this. I protected my company. You stole. Those are facts. Everything else, everything you built from that, that's on you. 2 FBI agents walked into the coffee shop. I'd called them before the meeting. They'd been waiting outside. Brooke Delaney, Agent Webb, showed his badge. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, interstate criminal conspiracy, and accessory to witness intimidation. She looked at me one last time. Hatred so pure it was almost beautiful. I hope it was worth it. It wasn't, I replied honestly, but it was necessary. They let her out in handcuffs. People stared, whispered. Someone took a photo. I sat alone in the coffee shop, staring at my untouched coffee, feeling absolutely nothing.
Natalie called me that night. I almost didn't answer. Stared at her name on my screen for 5 rings. Finally picked up. Dad? Her voice cracked. Dad? They arrested Mom, and Troy, and Leonard. The FBI came to my apartment, said I needed protection, said someone threatened to kill me. What's happening? You're safe, I said. I made sure of that. But I don't understand. Mom said you were destroyed, that we'd won, that everything was... Your mother was wrong, I said, and Troy lied to both of you. Silence. Then, you knew. You knew the whole time. 6 months, I confirmed. The retirement party. When you signed the papers without fighting, you were... Setting a trap. Yes. Oh my God. Her voice shook. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't... Troy said you never cared about us. He showed me emails, things you supposedly wrote about regretting having kids, about wishing you'd chosen differently. He said... He fabricated them, I said. I never wrote those. I never regretted you or your brother. I regretted missing your lives. That's different. She started crying. Real sobs. The kind that hurt to hear. I cheered, she whispered. At the party. I cheered while they destroyed you. While everyone watched. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I closed my eyes. Saw her at 8 years old, learning to ride a bike. Saw her at 16, wearing the locket I'd given her. Saw her at 25, clapping while my life ended. Natalie, I said, I need you to answer honestly. Did you know about Phase 2? Phase what? The plan to frame me for fraud, to destroy innocent contractors, to send me to prison. No. Shocked. Genuine. No, I swear. Troy said it was just about the divorce, about Mom getting what she deserved, about you finally facing consequences for never being there. He never mentioned, Dad, what was Phase 2? I told her. All of it. The fake documents, the forged evidence, the plan to destroy hundreds of families to hurt me. Brooke's role. Walter Delaney's involvement. By the time I finished, she was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Natalie, I said gently, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I'll do anything. The FBI wants your testimony about what Troy told you, about what you actually knew versus what he manipulated you into believing. If you testify truthfully, complete honesty, no protecting him, you walk away from this. No charges. No consequences. And if I don't? You could be charged as an accessory. The prosecutor's still deciding.
"What do you want me to do?" she asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. This was my daughter, my baby girl, the one I'd failed in 1,000 small ways, the one who cheered at my execution because she believed lies her brother told her. "I want you to tell the truth," I said. "Whatever that truth is, even if it helps Troy, even if it hurts me, I want you to finally choose honesty over family loyalty, because that's the only way you'll be able to live with yourself." Long silence. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll testify. I'll tell them everything." "Good." "Dad?" Her voice was small, young, like she was 8 again. "Can we, after this is over, can we try to fix us?" I looked out the window of my Chicago apartment. City lights spreading like stars. A view I'd bought with everything I'd lost. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I want to, but I don't know if I can forgive what happened. Not yet. Maybe not ever." "I understand. But Natalie, I'm still making sure you're safe. I'm still protecting you, because you're still my daughter. Even when I'm angry, even when I'm hurt, that doesn't change." She started crying again. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, baby girl." I hung up before she could hear my voice break. 6 months later, Leonard Flencher sentenced to 18 years federal prison. Wire fraud, conspiracy, embezzlement. Parole possible after 12. Diane Kane sentenced to 10 years federal prison. Accessory to fraud, money laundering. Parole possible after 7. Brooke Delaney sentenced to 14 years federal prison. Conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, witness intimidation, no parole. Walter Delaney sentenced to 33 years federal prison on RICO charges. 3 members of his organization flipped, his entire operation dismantled. He'll die in prison. Troy Kane sentenced to 22 years federal prison. Fraud, conspiracy, embezzlement, and 6 other felonies. Parole possible after 15. Natalie Kane granted immunity in exchange for testimony. No charges filed. I rebuilt my life in Chicago. Apex Development thrives. 3 major hospital contracts. 2 schools. A community center in a neighborhood that needed hope. I'm building things that matter now. Not just buildings, legacy. Natalie works for me. Project coordinator. We're slowly, painfully slowly, rebuilding trust. Some days are good. Some days we can't look at each other. But we're trying. She wears that locket I gave her when she was 16. I see her touch it sometimes when she thinks I'm not looking. I don't have family dinners. No grandchildren. Troy had a son I've never met. Probably never will. Some nights, victory feels hollow. Tastes like ash. I lie awake in my expensive apartment and wonder if I did the right thing. If destroying them was justice, or just revenge wearing a judge's robe. Then, I remember phase 2. Remember the hundreds of families who would have been ruined, the contractors who would have lost everything, the workers whose livelihoods would have been destroyed because Brooke wanted me to suffer. And I sleep just fine. The letter arrived 3 weeks ago. Federal Correctional Institution, Elkin, Troy's prison. I stared at the envelope for an hour before opening it. Wasn't sure I wanted to read whatever was inside. But curiosity, or maybe something else, won. Dad, I don't expect you to read this. Don't expect you to care. But I need to write it anyway. I spent 5 years hating you. 5 years building a version of you in my head that was a monster. Cold. Calculating. Caring more about business than family. Valuing your reputation over your son's happiness. Brooke helped me build that version. Every conversation, she'd add another brick. Your father cares more about money than you. Your father would sacrifice you for his precious integrity. Your father destroyed us. And I believed her because it was easier than admitting the truth. The truth is, you were right to fire her. She stole. She lied. She committed crimes. Giving her consequences wasn't destroying her. It was protecting everyone she would have hurt if you'd let her stay. I know that now. Sitting in here, 15 years until parole. Watching Brooke in the women's facility, still convinced she's the victim, still blaming you for everything.
I chose her over you, chose revenge over honesty, chose destroying you over understanding why you made the choice you made. And I destroyed Mom in the process. Destroyed Natalie, destroyed Leonard, destroyed myself. All because I couldn't accept that sometimes the people we love do bad things. And sometimes holding them accountable is the most loving thing we can do. You taught me that. I just didn't want to learn. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know. I finally understand what integrity costs. And I'm sorry I made you pay that price alone. Your son, Troy. I read it 3 times. Didn't cry. Didn't rage. Just read it. Then I folded it carefully, put it in my desk drawer, locked it. Didn't respond. Couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I didn't throw it away either. People ask me if revenge was worth it. Here's what I tell them. I didn't do this for revenge. I did it because Phase 2 would have destroyed hundreds of families, contractors who trusted us, clients who relied on us, workers who built their livelihoods around Titan. Troy and Brooke's plan would have left them all bankrupt, facing lawsuits, losing everything, while Troy fled with their money and blamed me for the ruins. So yes, I destroyed them first. Because sometimes revenge isn't about winning. It's about making sure the right people survive. It's about protecting the innocent from the guilty. It's about choosing integrity over comfort, even when comfort is your own family. And every night, when I close my eyes, I sleep just fine, because I know hundreds of families are still whole, because I wasn't. Integrity matters more than anything, even love. I'm at a construction site today. New children's hospital, pediatric wing, state-of-the-art facility that'll save lives for generations. Natalie arrives with coffee and blueprints. She's good at this work. Better than I expected. Maybe better than I ever was. Dad, we got the contract for the Pediatric Cancer Center too. Morrison Medical just confirmed. I smile. First genuine smile I've felt in a long time. Good, I say. Let's build something that matters. We stand side by side, reviewing plans. Father and daughter. Broken, but healing. Damaged, but trying. The foundation's already poured. Strong, solid, built to last. Just like the life I'm building now. Not for others this time. For myself. Subscribe if you believe justice always finds a way. Because the stories we tell next are darker than this one, and the revenge is colder. So here's my question for you. Was Vincent right?
Should he have forgiven Troy's letter? Or was some betrayal too deep to ever heal? We've all got different answers, and I want to hear yours. Comment below, guilty or innocent, forgive or forget, justice or mercy. Tell me where you stand. And if you're still not subscribing, drop a comment and tell me why. What's holding you back? Because the next story we're covering involves a mother, a will, and 3 children who learn too late that greed has a price. You won't want to miss it. Justice doesn't always wear a badge. Sometimes it wears patience. Sometimes it wears silence. And sometimes it wears the face of a man who lost everything and decided to make sure the right people survived. Thanks for watching. And remember, integrity matters more than anything, even when it costs you everything.